Please note that this video contains spoilers for the subject and the series and/or franchise leading up to this entry. Put off by how long this video is, don't worry, I try to jam-pack my videos with as much content and as much detail as I possibly can. Anything I feel I can comment on and that I feel you might be interested in, I pretty much put in the video. I try not to repeat myself and talk fairly fast. I either have or will cover other parts of this franchise, and this video either is or will be linked below. I'm not going to restate here what I did or will say in the other video. These videos get long enough as it is. Black Panther 3D movie thoughts. And this one is going to work out slightly differently than usual due to my continuing issues with my wrists. So just make sure this thing is set to the right thing. And let's try that again. Well, alright then. On plot. Wakanda Forever. I know almost nothing about Afrofuturism. I actually only found out about it in researching for this. I have read some Black Panther, but I have to admit most of it has been him as part of a team. I haven't read much of the solo work, but I do quite like the character. I knew about him well before he appeared in Civil War in the MCU, you know, and isn't some people say, he's not really a big deal. He's been around, you know. He was, I forget if it was 61 or 63, but he was introduced way back when, and was an Avenger for a while, and yeah. But yeah, furthermore, my knowledge of African American, definitely African culture, is far too limited to properly appreciate this film, but I am extremely happy something like this finally gets made and gets a wide release. I think it's very smart to realize this during Black History Month. I don't know if it was necessarily intentional to release it close to Valentine's Day, because it really is. I mean, if they were gonna go there, you know, considering the whole, yeah, they could have played up the love, excuse me, the relationship between T'Challa and Nakia if they were going to go for a Yeah, but go. This is not a white savior story. Thanks, Obama. Seriously, there are so many movies where it would be that the protagonist is the white guy who comes into this, you know, into this two white people foreign country and saves these poor non-whites from the problems that don't affect the white man, to fix colonialism, to ease the white man's conscience. And yeah, it's I'm really relieved. When they were like, okay, let's bring Ross to Wakanda, I was like, they're gonna poke fun at that trope, aren't they? And you got like, sure, yeah, another white boy to fix. And a superhero movie should have the hero saving people, stopping evil, and such. And I think this movie does a pretty good job of showing uh, in enough of that. Really, this movie is more than a movie about someone actively stopping evil. It's about how figuring out how to best stop evil. And he has superpowers, but he also has all these powers as the leader of this incredibly powerful country. And what how do you best use that power to help people? And are you responsible to your own people, to the people of the world? Yeah. But I do think that the movie does a good job. I think it's wise to have it start with this action scene of it's not the very first scene, but very early on we get the action scene wherein he fights, he frees Nakia. And that's a good way to have, yeah, you do need to have the good guy be shown to do, yeah. And I was wondering going in if the stakes were going to be, Wakanda or the whole world. And I think it makes a lot of sense, the thing of, it would affect the whole world if the vibranium weapons, vibranium and just general Wakanda tech got out to the rest of the world. And I thought that it was sufficiently easy to keep track of the different, groups and individuals of the, I don't, some people are going to read into that as like a, racist. I don't think all black people look alike. I'm just saying, when you go into this, there are these, I think, was it 5 different tribes of Wakanda, and it is indeed it's important to know, to be able to tell. If you watch this and you are having serious trouble remembering, I don't remember all the different names, but certainly M'Baku of the Jabari tribe and his relationship with T'Challa is very important, as is, I'm sorry, I don't remember his name, but the one whose father was killed by Claw. When Killmonger shows up and delivers the body of Claw, he's like, this guy did what my king couldn't. He specifically, he promised, I will bring him back here. And he didn't deliver, and this other man did. So that obviously, yeah, if it was a video game, you'd have the little bar of, your T'Challa's relationship with him goes down some, and Killmonger's relationship with him goes up some. Now, And, you know, this movie also, of course, has the issue that a lot of people only know very little about Black Panther, and thus you have to be able to go into this not knowing a lot. And I do think you can. You know, I re yeah, I read the first of the, I think, 5 total books. Nation Under Our Feet, the Ta-Nehisi Coates' run on Black Panther. It's the only one I could get to before this because I only thought of it a few days ago. But checking Wikipedia and such. But other than that, I did only really know the basics of specific, T'Challa stuff. And the let's see, what's I gonna say? And yeah, so I went into it not knowing a ton, but yeah, a lot of people are going to go into it knowing absolutely nothing, and you can follow the movie without any problem. Briefly, the reason this is only the spoiler section, that I'm not doing a spoiler-free section as I usually do, is the wrist issues. I'm not going to get into all the details, but I'm doing what I can to limit how much I use my wrists. Now, in Civil War, and it does indeed go on in this, Black Panther's claws can do some of the things that the Gauntlet can do in some of the Prince of Persia games, and I don't know if that's like intentional, if they got the same idea, if they both got the idea from the same place or something, but it's fun. And others have pointed out it's really great that have black women here. They're not just the angry sidekick. They're smart, not stereotypes. They kick ass. And we have a nearly all-black cast for the first time. And a movie focused on black people, not about slavery or drug addiction, and where the black characters are not just criminals. And there's a James Bond vibe, which I think really works out. It does make a lot of sense. You have, it's this king, and it's dealing with this kind of international spy stuff. And, others have pointed out it's in part about the country's leader's responsibility to his people and the rhetoric of revolutionaries. I thought that worked incredibly well in the movie. And, like Wonder Woman, this movie should have come out much sooner. I love Wonder Woman, both the character and the solo movie. And the solo movie, I will admit, does have some issues, and I detail those in the video I did on that. But I went into this, also, going to try to really analyze if this movie too has some issues, and honestly, I'm not sure I'd really say there's really not very much about this movie that I think should be changed. I don't think it makes very many. It's really impressive that it's such sharp commentary on, among other things, the Trump administration. And I mean, that's not, thankfully we're not that long into that, so I don't know exactly when they finished writing the movie and when they were shooting and such, but yeah, definitely. And this is also, I mean, this movie would have been very different if it had somehow come out basically like right after, you know, Civil War. That was in 2016. You know, if it had come out, the yeah, I would say it would have been very different if they didn't have so much. Yeah, and I I will say there's maybe sometimes some of the action scenes are maybe filmed and edited slightly awkwardly, and that's almost always the case when it's the first time someone is doing an action movie. That, you know, I haven't watched Ryan Coogler's other movies, but as far as I understand, they're dramas. It's sports drama in the case of Creed, but it just, you know, I recently rewatched both the Amazing Spider-Man movies, and, you know, especially in the first one, some of the action, you can really tell that Mark Webb was not used to doing the yeah, action scenes, and it's this is nowhere near that bad. I will admit the what's it called, subway scene in the first Amazing Spider-Man movie, it's really confusingly filmed and edited. Yeah, and yeah, there's a little bit in that direction here, but other than that, I mean, it's a movie. It's not confusing. It's thematically relevant. It's a smart movie. Yeah, I don't think there's really almost nothing that I would change. I suppose if I do think that you can't completely go blind into this, because it tells you that they thought that if you go into this not having watched Civil War, then you will be told that it appeared that T'Chaka was murdered by Bucky Barnes. But the movie doesn't actually reveal that it was, I forget if it's, I want to say it's Baron Zemo, not Baron Nemo. But anyway, yeah, it doesn't, and I do think, excuse me, I do think that's a mistake. I think the movie should have just briefly shown the reveal. Just, you know, just use that clip where, actually, I guess there's no really quick, just, you know, new footage, film some, you know, T'Challa gets back to Wakanda and someone asks him, did you get Bucky? And he says it turned out to be another person who did it, and he framed Bucky. Okay, that's it. But it's especially going to be confusing to people who go blind into this and then see the post-credit scene where Bucky is there and he's being, you know, and he's clearly being helped by Shuri. So yeah. Now, some people are saying this is the best, excuse me, of the MCU yet. It's definitely up there. It's really high up there, and I honestly don't think it's really difficult for me to. It's one of the best. It's definitely up there, as it has. Yeah, and it is the most relevant. You know, if it's a big deal to you whether these movies that, you know, I mean, it's not, the MCU movies don't tend to be about something that's literally happening right now. You know, there are some, you know, there can be some issues that are very similar to real-life issues. Some of the villains are very clearly terrorists, sometimes even directly referred to as terrorists. But by and large, it's not really set in the real world. And this one is the one that has the most to really say. The ones that are about terrorists, a lot of them, it kind of just tends to be, let's see the good guys fight these terrorists. You know, it's catharsis. But here, it actually makes you think. By the end of the movie, you don't. I'm sorry, I keep forgetting that that I'm talking spoilers, so that I don't have to. I can go into more detail. Yeah, you know, as you know, because I'm assuming you already watched the movie when you watch this. The movie doesn't say specifically. I mean, the one thing you could say for sure is you should take action. You should care about refugees and people who share similarities to you but that aren't in your country, and try to help those outside. But the movie doesn't end by saying, you know, from then on out, Wakanda solved the problems of the entire world. No, it says the Wakandans started working on helping people, you know, black people all over the world, and they tried to, yeah, you know, they tried to help in the slums and such. Excuse me. Now, and some say that it's the best villain yet. Again, definitely, absolutely up there, and he's probably the one that you could most see. He has a point. You know, it's that thing where he goes too far. I think the a lot of the best villains in fiction are when you can see their point and you maybe even agree with them, but the way they're trying to achieve their goals is wrong, so that you leave it not thinking. It's so easy, it's so boring. There are exceptions, but by and large, it's easy and it's boring to just say, here is someone who just wants to break everything you like and do a lot of bad things that you don't want them to do. And see, they got defeated. Or go cheer for the heroes. You know, that's so boring. But I mean, that's part of, you know, one of the things we love about Loki is that we can understand what he grew up the younger brother of the crown prince. You know, his whole life he's lived as the son of a king and as the younger brother of a man who would grow up to be a king. You know, he doesn't get to be a king. So yeah, when he is given the chance to rule first Asgard, then Midgard, yeah, you know, obviously that, yeah, we can understand why he's so passionate about it. And yeah, I mean, ultimately, Killmonger, the problem is that what he's talking about is going to kill a ton of people, and it's not actually going to solve the problems. It's just going, you know, that's what history shows, that violent revolution doesn't improve things as such. If when things get better for a lot of people, it tends to be because democracy spreads and gets more of a foothold, and that people become increasingly educated and passionate about the political process and such, where yeah, when the downtrodden use violence to get, you know, yeah, to get out of that position, it often, you know, just, yeah, look at the French Revolution. And yeah, and yeah, I already mentioned that, the action, yeah, since this is a drama director, the drama is great, and yeah, but the rest of the film I already talked about. The action, the scope and visuals are also among the things that a lot of directors that on their first big blockbuster, big action movie, they have problems with. Honestly, I didn't feel like that was really a problem here. The world of Wakanda is incredibly well realized, and it's somewhere that you want to spend more time. There are a lot of reasons I cannot wait for Infinity War to come out. And one of them is to spend more time in Wakanda. I mean, ultimately, I don't even know if a lot of the movie is set there. I just know that at least some of it is, and that's where some of the biggest fights will be. But even if it's only for a few minutes, I'm psyched to go back there. And a character like Shuri, you want someone like that in your life. Whether it's a family member, a romantic partner, you know, a friend, whatever. You want someone that positive and someone who smiles and jokes that much and who you can have a relationship. Obviously, I'm not saying that, yeah, obviously the relationship between Shuri and T'Challa is very much a brother-sister relationship. But, yeah, just, yeah, someone like that now. And right from the trailers, we could tell that this was going to be bursting with personality and culture of African Americans in Africa, and it would be a shame if the movie didn't have that. And I really love how utterly bathed in it is. The movie is completely unapologetic about it, and yeah, that's exactly as it should be. And I think that's also why a lot of critics are rating it really highly, but a bunch of regular people are rating it really low, giving it low ratings and such, because they can't handle that not everything is centered on whites. Now, let's see. And on rewatch of Civil War, I noted that Black Panther moves with the confidence of Iron Man and agility of Captain America, and probably even more agile. And as a lot of people have pointed out, Shuri steals a lot of scenes. Some say that Black Panther is not a big enough deal to have his own movie, that he's just a supporting player. I completely disagree, and I think this quite proves it. And for those who don't know, this Black Panther isn't connected to the Black Panthers, but his relationship with Killmonger has been likened to the one between Xavier and Magneto, which has been likened to MLK and Malcolm X. So the divisive African American political movement comparison remains inescapable, and I can totally see how Eric and T'Challa are a lot like, or T'Challa and Eric are a lot like Xavier and Magneto. And I love that this movie does not have a kick-ass black woman. It has a special forces team made up entirely of black women. And, we get, I don't know, at least half a dozen, maybe a full dozen members of them. And, yeah, the Dora Milaje, something like that. And I don't know the actors in this from anything except for the ones from Civil War, some of whom I already knew, and obviously Forest Whitaker and Angela Bassett, and I knew Michael B. Jordan from Chronicle and Fan Four Stick. Now, some said that Black Panther himself does not get many action scenes. I mean, I guess you could say that if what you were trying to communicate was that there are action scenes that he doesn't participate in, but he's in plenty. I mean, yeah, to briefly count up, we've got he frees the hostages at the start. Then he fights I don't know, I guess, I mean, he's not in the suit when he fights M'Baku. Okay, so let's not count that one. Then you have the chase in South Korea. Again, not counting because he's not in the suit before the chase itself. As far as I recall, he fights outside of the suit in the casino itself. Let's see. I guess we can skip the one with the freeing of Claw because it's not that much of an action scene, especially for Black Panther himself. Let's see. I guess the next scene where he wears the suit would be once he comes back from having been frozen today. And he's, yeah, so then you have that whole, and yeah, let's just go ahead and count the entire climax as just one. So that's three major with the, yeah, he's in most of the action scenes, even though a few of them he doesn't wear the suit. There's plenty of action scenes, and he's in most of them. I don't really know what their problem was. And we have some really futuristic sci-fi, and it doesn't go so far that it gets alienating. Some of the tech and some of the things about the country are really hard to imagine as part of the real world, which the MCU has largely been fairly close to. It's not... I mean, at the end of the day, the incredibly high-tech technology has also been part of the MCU from the very start. You know, Iron Man's suit is also really out there. So I do think that if you really badly need to be able to believe that it takes place today and it's technology, that then it will bother you. But then, I mean, the movie specifically, it opens with telling you this meteor came from space, and you know that, yeah. So they have, I don't know if maybe calling it alien technology is a bit too far to go, but still, you know, yeah. And Black Panther himself doesn't quip much, and some say that's good. I really love the MCU quips. I don't think there were too few. I'd say there's a good amount of humor in the movie. And, you know, the final Infinity Stone, it was rumored to be in Thor Ragnarok. It was rumored to be in this. You know, it didn't appear in either, so, you know, I heard a theory that it was going to be in the meteor that hit Wakanda, and that is still possible, because Claw specifically says only scratched the surface, so it could very easily be that in Infinity War, either they go, so, you know, they're mining the vibranium, and suddenly they see the Infinity Stone down there. Or Thanos gets there and he uses something to cut through some of the vibranium and get the Infinity Stone out or something. Now, in Civil War, we're told that there were 11 Wakandans who were on supposed outreach. The yeah, and in Lagos, I want to say it was. And this movie, it seems like, the whole outreach thing, that was more T'Challa's idea, and that was after T'Chaka. And this movie doesn't really go into that. I don't know, I guess it's possible that that was just, that wasn't a cover. I don't know. Now, Black Panther's suit has not changed much through the years, but it did have a cape for a while. And, not many characters in the MCU have capes. This doesn't really reference him having had a cape, which I do think that they could have, like Shuri could have said something. I'm just glad I got you to not wear that stupid cape anymore or something. And I did love Shuri's jokes about how uncomfortable the clothes you had to wear were, and the thing about, like, does anybody here have, lay claim to the throne? And Shuri, like, just also, and people are like gasping. She's like, my corset is really, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do the accent. My corset is really tight and uncomfortable. Can we please move this along? That's, yeah, that was really funny. And just yeah. And the thing with, that first scene where she's there and she's joking about him and you know, improving the technology and such. And she won't, and yeah, she won't, yeah, and he says, how, why don't you improve the the traditional clothes you wear for the, yeah. And she flips him off, and her mother's like, sure, sorry mom, because you know she knew without even having to look that Shuri was flipping off. Yeah. And now in the in at least one of the trailers, it looked like there would be some interesting, like there would be some also interesting, some aerial combat between jets, and it. I wanted to talk about how that's not something we've seen a lot of in the MCU so far. But really in the film, there wasn't that much of it. So I don't know if yeah, it's still something that, and it's especially something that really, it's mostly in the outer space ones, obviously, since that's where a lot of the, yeah, space, the ships that would be useful for that kind of situation are there. And if the laptop is almost done restarting, which I didn't tell it to do, then we can continue. Let's see. What can I think of off the top of my head to pass the time? Because it might be a few minutes. I think that they chose some good elements from the Ta-Nehisi Coates storyline to use. This whole thing of the country of Wakanda actually, the people starting to turn against T'Challa as a king, and having the, excuse me, and that's also the action scenes wherein they're fighting their own people. A lot of people would mistakenly direct these action scenes just as, oh, look at this cool action, but the movie actually captures how, it's genuinely, they don't want to, none of them take pleasure in fighting their countrymen. Excuse me, they simply find, they cannot abide by what what is being done. And we are just about open. And moving on. To rewatch for research. Now, I've watched every MCU movie, and except for Thor Ragnarok, since I really watch anything in theaters more than once, and so recent, so no copy, at least twice each, and at least once within the last few months. I watched Vantage Point a few months back, not because Forrest Whitaker was in it, and since this has been compared to The Godfather, I rewatched the trilogy within last week or so. And once again, due to risks, I will not be reading out reviews, but I did read every professional review that was put up by the time I left for some hours ago. Yeah. And I do think that a lot of good points were made. If you, like me, do sometimes sit down, read every single professional review, and some of them, I mean, not every single non-professional review is, someone whining that someone who isn't a white man is getting their own movie. But anyway, yeah, there's a lot of good reviews. Now, that brings us to notes taken while watching. And I have them right here. Let's see. Yeah, I already mentioned that it's one of the best of the MCU so far, and it's one of the best movies I've ever watched, period. And it's one of the most relevant of these. and not just like in a long time, but ever. And the movie is 2 hours to the minute without credits, but you definitely want to stay through the credits. And I forgot to note how long with credits. And you know, I thought it worked well how the movie opens with us being told about the meteor of Vibranium and basically the myth, the background of Wakanda is told to a child and to the audience. And the sort of animation, it has that mythic, epic quality to it. And because it's being told to a child, it doesn't feel like the movie is like talking down to the audience, which it really isn't, because this is not something that we would otherwise know. But you know, and this is, you know, it's how Wonder Woman does it, and a lot of other movies have done it this basic way. But sure, look, if it ain't Baroque, don't fix it. And let's see. Yeah, and you know, then the movie goes to 1992 in California with this sort of gang activity and the, you know, this thing, why did you betray Wakanda, little brother? And I know you like spies, so I put a spy with your spy. And also, I really like the thing with, there are two Grace Jones people out in the, you know, out in the hallway, and they've got spears and everything. And the thing, you know, they knock, oh, let them in. They're not gonna knock again. the I really like all these little hints and build up of, you know, in Civil War you had the, you know, move or you will be moved. As entertaining as that would be, you know. And let's see. Yeah, and you know, Black Panther stops a small group, kidnap people, and it plays out like the movie Predator with Black Panther as the Predator, which is fitting. And that one scene in Batman Begins, and really, yeah, I'll get to that later. And aspects to Wakanda feel like Themyscira, this kind of hidden from the rest of the world. Did he freeze like an antelope in headlights? I really like that line. And you know, obviously, if you've seen the trailers, you know that Killmonger in the museum is, you know, that's not what he, quote unquote, normally looks and sounds like. You know, he's downplaying it so that it won't attract attention. But then it turns out he poisoned this woman working there, and you know, uses that, yeah, you know, steals the vibranium artifact and gets out. And you know, Cloud points out that thing, you know, if we do it like this, then it'll look, we'll look more like amateurs, and they'll have a harder time finding us. And you know, really, them stealing the vibranium artifact is like, kind of like a spy heist kind of thing, spycraft heist kind of thing. And you know, and we get the sonic glove used before we see the cannon. And I really love that the movie has a ton of African dancing, ritual, clothes, chanting, etc. And the movie very rarely jokes about the African material. It wears it on its face proudly, as it should. And I like the, you know, they deactivate the waterfall, which is now just these really watery cliffs. And it's this thing of, it's like when they fly through the mountain, you know, which is just a hologram. It's, no one would find this if they didn't know exactly how. So yeah. And you have M'Baku of the Jabari tribe dueling Black Panther, questioning his worth as a king. He's too young. And the duel takes place with this, you know, on one side, the you know, in one direction you have the edge of the waterfall, and then you have this closing ring. You know, every so often they'll walk a little closer, and they've got their spears out. So if the fight isn't finished otherwise, you know, then they'll push both fighters so close to the edge of the waterfall that they'll be forced to, you know, there's probably at least some fighting games to also do that, but that's a really cool way to do it, yeah. And yeah, and at this point I noted great action for a non-action director, great action in general. And you know, the Black Panther has to duel without his powers, his suit, his claws. Shuri has a really infectious smile. And you know, when you become a Black Panther or you get your powers back after having been channeled to a duel, you visit the ancestral plane where you communicate with your father. And some of the movie's best scenes are set there, and you know, with this sort of father-son bond. And this is again something so many movies, because again, that's in the comics. So many movies would waste something like that, and this movie just doesn't. It's from start to finish, it's about what is T'Challa like as a king, and he seeks counsel from other people who've known, you know, who have known power, who've known who've counseled kings and such, and one of them is his father. And the first time he comes to the ancestral plane, it's very much this, how, you know, I want to be a good king, but what's the best way to? And then later, he feels that he has understood something, and he has a chance to fix something that his father did not understand, that his father did wrong. And his father does say, I made a mistake, you know, and T'Challa actually, yeah, you know, he goes from there, and actually, yeah, I thought that was really compelling, and I really loved that we also got to see Eric in the ancestral plane and how different it was. And I mean, the ancestral plane, that, you know, that was what T'Challa told Black Widow about in Civil War after his father died. And yeah, the is a really great way to just show a little bit of that. And you know, you have Nakia, T'Challa's ex, who left Wakanda to help the needy. And that's again this thing, you know, she says that the right way to use the power that they have is to help the needy outside of Wakanda. And, you know, not long after that, you have the CGI Rhino. It looks mostly real. You know, I don't think that's ever... I never did write a note about the 3D. Most of the time I didn't really notice it. I don't think that there was a lot. I think some of the action scenes did use it a little bit. But other than that, I mean, it added a little bit of depth, I guess, but on the whole, I wouldn't really go for it. If, you know, if I was watching this again, I probably wouldn't go for 3D. And, you know, characters discuss whether or not the country should let in refugees, which, I mean, in part it is this very sharp kind of, you know, of having an African country discuss whether or not to let in refugees when, you know, third world countries and such are sometimes some of the places where refugees will come from. And it is also, I'm not going to get too into it because it is baffling to me how all these countries, you know, I'm European, so I'm not putting it on America only, but all these Western European countries, we pride ourselves on having worked really hard to make sure that society can help those in need. And then the moment that there are all these refugees, which it's not, this, we're not talking about like, you know, suddenly UFO lands and out comes a bunch of refugees. No, we knew that some of these countries might need, that there might be people fleeing from them, and we didn't sit down and say, how can we best help these refugees? Instead, the moment that they start pouring out, we're just like, well, we can't take them. Why not? What did we, what is all this welfare worth? What is all this, if we can't use it when other people have, you know, it just, and I'm not going to get more into it than that because I could spend forever on it. And but yeah, I really, it's something that really needs to be talked about, and this movie helps start that conversation. And I also really like that the king doesn't just decide, he discusses it with the council, and then we see later in the film that some of the members of the council may be a little too eager to agree with someone like Eric Killmonger. And Shuri doesn't like him wearing open-toed sandals in the lab. And that was really fun. Him walking over. What is that? No, the question is, what is that? And just, yeah. And you know, she has these suits, the boots that make no sound. And then she says, you know what I call them? Sneakers. That's a dad joke, Shuri. That's literally a dad joke. You know, what do thieves wear on their feet? Sneakers. And yeah, I really love the sibling relationship, them joking around with each other. The thing with you know, attack it anywhere, and you know, attacks it and it goes flying through. You weren't supposed to hit it that hard. Well, you didn't tell me. I invite you into my lab and you start, you know, and you knock everything around like that. Okay, now attack it again at the same place. Okay, are you videotaping this? Yeah, for research purposes. And right then he should have been like, I'm not punching it until you put down the phone. You know, but nope, he goes on and it launches him back and she films the whole thing. Delete that footage immediately. And that's also incredibly important in a movie like this, to show that, you know, he's not invulnerable, and he can, you know, and he also can, you know, I mean, there are some movies where he would have like grabbed the phone from her hand and smashed it or something to keep others from them, but you know, instead, I mean, clearly he's not, yeah, you know, he'll live. Yeah. And they go to the casino for selling Vibranium. Can we please focus? Thank you. Are we on comms? Yes, you are both on comms right now. And the Stanley O cameo as Gambler, really loved it. I'll just take that. Yeah. And the thing about, you know, quite an entourage. You dropping a mixtape? Oh yes, I am actually. I'll send you the SoundCloud link. Oh, I'd really rather not. And you know, you've got her. In general, I like the bit about her wig, and it is also, I mean, it's cute that they joke about it, but really, she can't be that. Isn't she the one who keeps leaving? She'll every so often leave the country, or did I mix her up with one or the other? There's at least one Dora Milaje, as far as I understand, every so often leaves the country, and actually, I guess no, she wasn't wearing a wig in her Civil War scenes, I don't think. But I mean, to blend in, she presumably, I don't know, I guess maybe she does usually just say, no, I'm from Africa, wherever she goes. And it was just so that Claw wouldn't know that there was anyone from Africa there, because he'd see through it. Okay, fair enough. But yeah, she tosses her wig at the face of someone she's attacking, which reminded me very much of Black Widow against the Russians in the first Avengers movie. And this was where I noted that every action scene is memorable. The movie references major comic book movies with a lot of respect, and I've already mentioned a lot of these references now. I'll mention more. The fight in the casino is great. And since the good guys don't know which black SUV Claw's in, they destroy, they stop or destroy all of them. Really, they were probably going to destroy these cars anyway. They are black SUVs. And really badass car chase through the streets of South Korea. And I love how both women really comically survive this car crash, where one of them is like surfing on the roof, on that one part. Actually, I forget. I'm not sure if it was the roof, but there's one part, and the other one's just still in the seat, and sliding. Yeah, it was very funny. And I really loved Shuri remote controlling the car, and the thing with. That's pretty dark, but she actually ran a guy over, and she couldn't see it because of the remote control, the way that's set up. She's like, what was that? Oh, never mind. That's a little dark, but, I mean, it was a bad guy. It wasn't, yeah. And the thing with Claw shoots it with the sonic cannon, and Black T'Challa jumps off, and she, like, sits there in and the thing comes apart around her. That was very funny. And Claw in custody is a lot like the Man of Steel scene where Superman's in custody. And Claw's very funny, and he seems kind of delirious, and that's when he also talks about the El Dorado legend. I think Nerdist already talked about this, and I'd just be repeating what they said. And he talks about, and apparently the sonic cannon is a mining tool that was slightly changed around. I think that's what it is in the comics. Also, I'm fairly certain I've heard of it talked about like that before, at least. And Black Panther jumps on a grenade, which was a lot like Steve Rogers in the first Captain America movie. But, that's, is this a test, that thing? And I guess the reason they let Claw go with Eric in the escape was to save Ross's life. And it does have consequences, because then Killmonger kills Claw, and they then and presents the body to that one guy who then starts supporting Eric over T'Challa. And that's also, that's part of it. Some characters in the movie keep being driven by anger and desire for revenge, which is what drove T'Challa in part of Civil War. And by the end of Civil War, he has moved past that. So, this movie taking place after that, yeah, T'Challa is no longer, he doesn't want revenge himself, and he realizes that other people who do want revenge, that can be very harmful. But that doesn't mean that, there's only so much he can do without, and if he had told the other guy, well, I let Claw go because there's this, we had to heal this other guy, he might have said, so you value him more than you value your own people. Yeah. And, Shuri healing him and such reminded me of Jane Foster in Thor: The Dark World on the, on that operating table, and also somewhat Doctor Strange when he fixes up the patient there at the very start. And Eric, without hesitation, kills his ally when she becomes a human shield for Claw, and he kills Claw. Huge surprise. I did not at all expect. I thought Claw would basically be in most of the movie. And we find out that Eric is a Wakanda native, or in part, yeah. And as Killmonger points out, African Americans who aren't in Wakanda are suffering, and he wants to get them Vibranium weapons so that they can fight back against the abuse. And that is, yeah, and that's, that's where you do kind of get into kind of Black Panther, Malcolm X kind of territory, militant African Americans. And again, I'm not saying I completely let me be very clear, I 100% understand the desire to go in that direction, but it is extremely dangerous, and it's not very likely to get a positive result no matter what. It very rarely goes well when you just arm a group of people and expect, if there are situations where the thing to do is put guns in the hands of people and send them to fight. That is, World War II, it was necessary that armed men were sent to fight Nazis and the Soviet Union. That was simply necessary. But you can't do that to improve someone's well-being within a regular society. That's just not going to go well. And we get flashbacks to the opening scene with more information. Turns out that was Eric's father. And I will say, the moment that we saw the kid's face there at the start, I knew, okay, obviously that's Michael B. Jordan as a kid. They really found a kid who looks a lot like, I don't know if that is like his little brother or actual kid or something, but yeah. And yeah, and the Eric killed Claw, gave body to the man who lost his father to Claw, hurting his relationships to T'Challa. And we find out that Eric is related to T'Challa, and T'Challa loses some faith in his father due to the unclicide, not patricide. And they call him Killmonger because he killed so many people, many of them in Iraq. I really appreciate that the movie has a lot of subtitled African in addition to speaking in English. And, I didn't watch it with English subtitles. My country, we don't dub movies except for children's movies, but we do subtitle every movie. So, including in the ones that are on mother tongue. But yeah, so I don't know exactly, but I figure, yeah, there's no way they didn't subtitle it in the English released versions. And I do think, an argument could be made that they should be speaking African all the time, since they are Africans in Africa, speaking to other Africans. But I do think that might have been taking it one step too far. That might have been too alienating. And there's also, I read on, I forget if it was Wikipedia or IMDb or where, that, apparently in the comics, maybe I misunderstood this, but apparently, like, the Dora Milaje in general are just married to the Black Panther, or more than one of them at least. And in this, it's only that, you have the X there. But yeah, it seems to be completely monogamous relationships in this, where you know, in Africa, in reality, I mean, ultimately, it's a matter of how many women can you afford to provide for, you know. And yeah, a lot of, you know, people in the West are uncomfortable with the idea of having more than one partner. And I really appreciate that they didn't like say, nope, we can't make the movie without, because the movie pushes it about as far as it could for a ton of white men who can't handle very much empowerment of minorities. And Eric wants to do what his father wanted to do, and he duels the Black Panther. He's killed hundreds of people to get to kill T'Challa, and he wins the duel, and he kills Forrest Whitaker's character, Zuri? I forget how they pronounce it, but I believe it was Z-U-R-I. And I have to admit, I really did not expect T'Challa to lose the duel. And the movie explores the necessity of overthrowing your ruler if he is damaging the country. Again, they definitely wrote this in part about Trump. And I'm not saying that the movie wants you to grab a weapon but against Trump or anyone else. But you know, they are saying some rulers are harmful and you need to legally depose them. And yeah, and the movie doesn't pretend that this will be easy or that it won't hurt. And Eric is a black person who lost a parent at a young age to the people in power for reasons he didn't understand. And really, he's one of many. And that's, again, you know, in this film, in this case, there was a reason. You know, the authorities didn't kill. You know, it wasn't because he was selling cigarettes, or, you know, or had a toy gun or something. But yeah, you know, tons of African Americans can identify with that. And the movie doesn't say that you're wrong for putting yourself in his place. It's just that you shouldn't let that drive you to use violence against people. You know, that's basically, but yeah, I mean, really, when you think about it, even if you go further down that, yeah, you know, he was killed because he was doing something illegal, he was doing something violent that could get a lot of people hurt. A lot of black people who are extremely poor are pushed into doing something illegal that could get people hurt. And that doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt to lose your father. You know, no matter what he was doing in that situation. And yeah, and the movie goes in and explores that, and I am deeply impressed by the movie can explore that, but it doesn't, it's not a whole movie just about hurt black people, which again, so many movies are focused entirely on the pain of a minority, and those movies definitely need to be made, but this movie is in part about empowerment of, that's part of, you know, a lot of people are going to say, watch, but in reality, there's no African country that's, you know, that has such incredible technology and wealth and such. No, but when you imagine that there is, you can tell a compelling story. You know, the moment that you say, no, but look, in a white people country, white people have a lot of power and a lot of wealth and technology, and then you have some black people who are not originally of that country, but they're still part of the story, then you've alienated the black people. It's no longer, it's not their home, it's not their culture. And here, because it is so empowering, it's not a story about them struggling to get by, as it is in reality a lot of the time. It's a story about, you know, exploring power, but from the black people's perspective, without it. Yeah, it's genius, and I hope there are tons more. I mean, maybe this already exists, but I think, you know, maybe for Romani, some, you know, yeah, yeah, basically more or less the same thing. So yeah, a fiction where they have their own country, where you know, where they can get by without ever having to steal or anything, you know, something like that, so they could feel empowered. I think this should be done for every minority, basically. And yeah, and if they, yeah, I would watch that movie too. And you know, Eric's father tells him, "You won't be welcome there." You know, he tells him this of he tells his son that he won't be welcome in his father's home. You know, that again, it's so alienating, it's so disempowering for Eric. You really understand why he feels such bitterness. And, you know, he says of the heart-shaped herbs, burn all of them. You know, there will be no kings of Wakanda after him. And that again, that very specifically, he's literally telling them, yeah, you know, this is now a dictatorship. No one will take my place. You know, it's I don't know for sure if what he means is there will be no country there once he's done with it, that it won't be, you know, that there will be no one running it at all. I mean, he clearly doesn't think that T'Chaka made the right choice in killing his father, so, you know, yeah, he thinks maybe there should be no king. You know, maybe that's part of where, and, you know, yeah, that's an option. Maybe yeah, I guess those are basically. And, you know, he goes to the throne, and the camera gradually flips from upside down to right side up. The world is upside down. This man should not be on the throne. It's very similar to that one shot in Primal Fear. And, you know, yeah, basically Eric wants a worldwide French Revolution with, you know, African Americans as the French, in place of the French, the regular people, the people who weren't in power. And he just directly says the sun will never set on the Wakandan Empire, which is I forget exactly who said it, but that was what they used to say about the British Empire. And the British Empire, there are some things that have come out of colonialism that have been beneficial to the people colonized, but by and large, there have been tremendous atrocities done to the people colonized. And yeah, and he says, and again, he literally says, no, but today it's conquer or be conquered, and I want to conquer. You know, he doesn't say, let's find a third option, which is what basically, you know, T'Challa is like, no, we can't just be as bad as them. And really, from when Eric arrives in the country, there's a long chunk of the movie that has very little comedy, and I found it worked. I wasn't like, oh, put in a joke or something. And you have, you know, M'Baku saying, if you speak again, I will feed you to my children. I'm kidding, we are vegetarian. And it's like, because some of them, you know, some tribes do practice cannibalism, and yeah, that really was a great way to, I don't know, I can imagine some people will find it offensive, and I can understand why, but I liked it. I knew that T'Challa would still be alive since he's in Avengers Infinity War, but I didn't know how they were going to bring him back, and I was very surprised. And T'Challa confronts his father. Why didn't you bring the child home? You made a mistake. You were all wrong to turn your back on the world. Do you have a blanket? And, Ross points out Eric was trained to take down governments. And I do also think Ross does offer things once he's there. That's one thing that he can point out, and he, hologram mans that ship and the whole, yeah, he's not just that, and I really appreciate that he's not the self-insert protagonist for the white people or something. And in the movie points out you have to be responsible for your people, those of your ethnicity, and the people that are under you in some, and most of us aren't rulers of countries, but you could also say, if you have a child, or if you're, friends that are younger than you, stuff like that, And something that this movie really gets is it's not just, quote-unquote, just about putting minorities in movies, but also tell their stories and, convey their conflicts and explore the themes that are unique to them. This movie gets that. Wonder Woman solo movie gets that. And that's part of what makes them such great movies. And we're told they're ready to attack New York, Hong Kong, and London. The Dora Milaje against Eric was a great fight. And T'Challa has to fight his own people. There's no glory in it. He takes no joy in it. The war rhinos are really cool. And as others know, the Dora Milaje fight as a unit. And Ross piloting is somewhat similar to Gordon in the Batmobile in Batman Begins. They put like three to five S words in a row. I guess they wanted to burn through all of them. Maybe they were trying to make a statement about, isn't it silly that we can do this many of them but not anymore? I think there's one other S word in another part of the film, but other than that, all of them are right there. And I mean, MCU movies, some of them use a lot. Ant-Man used like 3 or something. Age of Ultron uses 1 S word. A few other minor swears as well, minor to moderate. And they're fighting as they're falling, and one of the two in the Black Panther suit does the claw spin on that Wolverine did in Statue of Liberty at the end of the first X-Men movie. And the fight next to the mag train is very compelling, and there's that brief bit where there's a train between them, and so they both talk about their points of view. Very compelling. And there is an actual civil war in the film. And this tells the story that no other MCU film could. And Eric may be the most compelling MCU villain so far. And Nakia and T'Challa kiss at the end. And the movie opens and ends in a black slum. And at the start we see a conflict, and at the end, hopefully, the solution to it. The outreach from Wakanda. In the mid-credits, T'Challa saying that they will share with the world. Wise people build bridges, foolish people build walls. Yeah, that was very on the nose. And, they have that one guy, what kind of nation of farmers teach the world? And, yeah. And, let's see. Yeah, and the movie also makes the point some world leaders abuse their power to hurt or kill people. Eric does, Trump does. And then you have the post-credit scene where Bucky wakes up, and so there's still much to learn, and so he still doesn't have the new arm. And let's see. And really, all 3 Black Panther featuring MCU films, Civil War, this, and Infinity War all have Winter Soldier in the Black Panther featuring film. And Like his namesake, Black Panther is incredibly nimble and generally seems like he might be the most nimble in the MCU.